Imagine a city bursting with life, where horns blare, lights twinkle, and a beloved bus driver named Tom rolls through the streets in his big blue bus, greeting kids and workers with a smile that feels like sunshine. Everyone loves Tom's goofy jokes and warm hellos, but hidden behind his cheerful face is a terrifying secret. Cruel criminals are forcing him to do something wrong, threatening his family if he dares to fight back. Then, a quiet stranger named Keanu steps onto the bus. With sharp eyes and a kind heart, he senses Tom's fear and promises to help, without throwing a single punch or raising his voice. This is the thrilling tale of how Keanu outsmarts a cunning gang, protects Tom's family, and brings hope back to Sunnyside City, all in his calm, clever way. Sunnyside City was a place of endless motion and sound. Skyscrapers towered into the sky, their windows glinting in the morning sun. Street vendors shouted about fresh coffee, warm bagels, and sizzling hot dogs, while buses rumbled through crowded streets, weaving past honking taxis and scurrying pedestrians. At the heart of this bustling world was Tom, the driver of bus number 47, a big blue vehicle that carried kids to school and workers to their offices. Tom was a local hero, known for his loud laugh, silly jokes, and a smile that could brighten even the gloomiest day. He knew everyone by name. Timmy, the shy kid who always had a superhero comic tucked under his arm. Mrs. Carter, the baker whose aprons were dusted with flour. Mr. Jenkins, the grumpy old man who clutched his newspaper like it was his only friend. But for the past 6 months, Tom's smile had been fading. It was tight, forced, and his eyes darted nervously, as if he were hiding a heavy secret. Tom was trapped in a nightmare. It all began one cold evening at the bus depot, when a man in a black leather jacket cornered him after his shift. The man, Vince, had a mean smirk and eyes that sent shivers down Tom's spine. Vince knew about a mistake Tom had made years ago, when he was young, broke, and desperate for money. Back then, Tom had worked for some shady people, moving boxes he didn't know were stolen goods. It was a foolish choice, one he'd regretted ever since. He'd turned his life around, built a family, and become Sunnyside's best bus driver. But Vince had dug up the truth and used it like a weapon. He threatened to tell Tom's boss, his neighbors, and worst of all, his family, his wife, Lisa, and their 6-year-old daughter, Emma, if Tom didn't obey. Vince even hinted he could make life dangerous for Lisa and Emma, his words dripping with menace. Vince's orders were simple but awful. Every Tuesday, Tom had to carry heavy black bags on his bus and drop them off at specific stops across the city. Tom didn't know exactly what was in the bags, stolen electronics, counterfeit money, or something worse, but he knew it was wrong. Each time he hid a bag under his seat, his heart pounded, and his hands trembled. He hated breaking the law, but he was terrified for Lisa, who worked long shifts as a nurse at Sunnyside Hospital, and Emma, who loved drawing pictures of flowers, buses, and her family. If Vince followed through on his threats, their happy life could crumble. One crisp October morning, a new passenger climbed onto bus number 47. He was tall, with dark hair tied back in a neat ponytail and a calm, steady presence. His name was Keanu, and he wasn't like the other riders. He didn't scroll through his phone or rush to a seat. Instead, he sat near the front, watching the city roll by with a quiet focus. When Tom greeted him with a shaky, "Morning, welcome aboard," Keanu nodded and said, "Nice bus, Tom. You keep it spotless." His voice was low and friendly, but his eyes were sharp, like he could see things others missed. Keanu started riding the bus every day. He didn't talk much, but he noticed everything. He saw how Tom's hands shook on the steering wheel. He heard the forced chuckle when Timmy shared a joke about Spider-Man. And on Tuesday, Keanu spotted something suspicious. At 8:15 a.m., Vince boarded the bus at a stop near a rundown coffee shop. He carried a heavy black bag and leaned close to Tom, whispering something that made Tom's face go pale. Vince slid the bag under a seat, gave Tom a cold stare, and got off at the next stop, a grimy street in the old factory district. Tom didn't look up for the rest of the route. Keanu didn't confront Tom. He wasn't the type to push or cause a scene. Instead, he kept riding the bus, piecing together clues like a detective in a movie. He noticed Vince's routine. Always the same stop, always Tuesday, always a black bag. Keanu started following Vince after he left the bus, staying far enough back to avoid being seen. One day, he trailed Vince to a dark alley behind a shuttered hardware store. 2 other men were waiting, tough guys with tattoos snaking up their necks and rough voices. Keanu hid behind a stack of crates, snapping photos with his phone. He overheard them talking about the driver and how they had him under control. They mentioned a warehouse by the river where they stored their goods, and laughed about how easy it was to use Tom. Keanu knew Tom was in serious trouble, but he also knew that confronting Vince or his gang would be risky. If the criminals felt cornered, they might hurt Tom or his family. Keanu needed a plan that was smart, quiet, and safe. His first priority was protecting Lisa and Emma. He remembered a friend, Sarah, who lived in a small town a few hours away. Sarah owned a cozy cabin in the mountains, surrounded by tall pines and winding trails. Years ago, Keanu had helped her when her car broke down on a lonely road, and she'd always said she owed him a favor. One evening, as Tom was sweeping out the bus after his shift, Keanu leaned against the driver's seat. "Tom," he said, his voice calm, "you ever think about getting away for a bit? Taking your family somewhere quiet?" Tom looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "A getaway? Sounds nice, but it's tough. Lisa's working crazy hours, and Emma's got school. Plus, we don't have the money for a trip." "Why do you ask?" "I know a place," Keanu said, his eyes steady. "A cabin in the mountains. My friend owns it. It's free for a week, maybe 2. Safe, quiet, perfect for relaxing." Tom frowned, confused. "That's real kind, Keanu, but why are you offering this? You don't even know me." Keanu shrugged, a small smile on his lips. "You seem like a good guy, Tom. I just think you could use a break. No catch." Tom hesitated. He was nervous about leaving the city with Vince watching him, but Keanu's calm confidence made him feel safe. That night, he talked to Lisa in their small apartment, the TV humming softly in the background. Lisa was exhausted, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled from a double shift. "A cabin sounds wonderful," she said, rubbing her eyes. "Emma would love it, and honestly, Tom, you've been so stressed. Maybe it's what we need." The next morning, Tom packed their old station wagon with clothes, Emma's stuffed bunny, a sketchbook for her drawings, and a bag of snacks. Emma bounced in the back seat, singing about trees and squirrels. They drove to Sarah's cabin, a wooden house nestled in a valley where the air smelled of pine. Emma ran to the porch, shouting about building a fort, and Lisa held Tom's hand, smiling for the first time in weeks. With Tom's family safely away, Keanu turned his attention to the criminals. He spent nights watching the warehouse by the river, an old building with rusty doors and broken windows. It was busy at odd hours. Men came and went, carrying crates and bags, always glancing over their shoulders. Keanu didn't rush in. He was patient, moving like a shadow. One night, when the warehouse was quiet, he found a loose window and slipped inside. The air was thick with the smell of oil and dust. Stacks of crates lined the walls, labeled with fake names like Sunshine Imports and River Trading Company. Keanu didn't touch anything. He didn't want to tip off the gang. Instead, he left subtle clues for the police. A crumpled receipt with Vince's name scrawled on it, a torn map of the alley where the gang met, and a phone number scratched onto a crate that linked to their operation. Keanu knew clues alone wouldn't be enough to shut down the gang. He needed to give the police a clear path. Using his phone, he searched public records and posts on X about crime in Sunnyside City. He found news articles about stolen goods moving through the city, a shop owner's post complaining about shady guys near the factory district, and a mention of a mystery driver being pressured by a gang. Keanu knew it was Tom. He also found a local crime watch group on X, where people shared tips about suspicious activity. One post mentioned a truck seen loading crates at the river warehouse late at night. Keanu gathered all this, photos, posts, articles, and his own notes, and sent it to the police through an anonymous email. His message was short. Check the warehouse by the river. Stolen goods, counterfeit cash, and more. Look for Vince. While waiting for the police to act, Keanu kept watch over the city. He rode bus number 47 every day, even though Tom was gone. The substitute driver, a grumpy older man named Carl, didn't notice that the black bags had stopped appearing. Vince hadn't shown up since Tom left. Keanu figured the gang was getting nervous, maybe sensing something was off. He also checked Tom's apartment, driving by at night to make sure no one was watching the place. Everything seemed quiet, but Keanu stayed vigilant, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Keanu didn't stop there. He wanted to make sure the criminals had no way out. He started talking to people in the neighborhood, casually, never mentioning Tom or the gang. At the rundown coffee shop where Vince boarded the bus, Keanu chatted with the barista, a young woman named Mia. She mentioned seeing weird guys hanging around, sometimes carrying heavy bags. Keanu nodded, pretending to be just another curious customer, but he took mental notes. He also visited a corner store near the factory district, where the owner, Mr. Patel, complained about late-night noises and strange trucks. Keanu bought a soda, listened, and added the details to his plan. To cover all bases, Keanu reached out to an old contact, a retired cop named Joe who now ran a community center. Joe didn't ask questions. He trusted Keanu's instincts from their past work together on small neighborhood projects. Keanu shared just enough. There's trouble by the river. Keep an ear out, maybe tip off your police buddies. Joe nodded, promising to pass along any useful information. Keanu also left an anonymous note at the community center's bulletin board, hinting at suspicious activity near the warehouse without mentioning names. Keanu's careful planning didn't end with clues and tips. He wanted to understand the gang's network better, so he spent evenings at a local library, using public computers to dig deeper. He found old news reports about similar crimes in nearby cities, suggesting Vince's gang might be part of a bigger operation. He noticed patterns in the ex-posts, mentions of the same fake company names he'd seen on the warehouse crates. Keanu cross-referenced these with public business records, discovering that Sunshine Imports was a shell company with no real address. He added this to his anonymous email to the police, giving them another thread to pull. To keep the pressure on, Keanu started visiting other bus stops along Tom's route, watching for any signs of the gang's activity. He noticed a second man, not Vince, dropping off a small package at a stop near a park one evening. Keanu followed him, staying out of sight, and saw him meet one of Vince's tattooed partners. He took more photos, careful not to be seen. These new clues confirmed the gang was using multiple drop-off points, not just Tom's bus. Keanu updated his anonymous tip to the police, including the new photos and details about the park stop. Keanu also spent time talking to other bus drivers at the depot, keeping his questions vague. He learned that another driver, Maria, had seen a man matching Vince's description hanging around her route too. Maria didn't know about the bags, but she mentioned feeling uneasy about some guy in a black jacket who stared too long. Keanu thanked her, bought her a coffee, and added this to his growing pile of evidence. He didn't want to involve Maria too much. She had her own family to worry about, but her information helped him map out the gang's movements. To make sure the gang didn't suspect anything, Keanu varied his routine. Some days he rode different buses, blending in with other passengers. Other days he walked the factory district, noting license plates of suspicious trucks. He even visited a small diner near the warehouse, where he overheard a delivery driver talking about extra stops for a guy named Vince. Keanu sipped his coffee, pretending to read a newspaper, and filed the information away. Every detail helped build a stronger case for the police. Keanu's efforts didn't stop at gathering evidence. He wanted to make sure the community was safe, so he started attending neighborhood watch meetings, sitting quietly in the back. He listened as residents shared concerns about strange activity in the factory district. One woman, Mrs. Lopez, mentioned seeing a man in a black jacket near her store, looking nervous. Keanu didn't say much, but he noted her description matched Vince. He encouraged the group to share their tips with the police, planting the idea without revealing his own role. He also dropped off a flyer at a local community board, listing general safety tips, but subtly mentioning the river warehouse as a spot to watch. To further tighten the net, Keanu visited a pawn shop near the factory district, where he casually asked the owner, Mr. Kim, about recent customers. Mr. Kim grumbled about a guy with tattoos who tried to sell some fancy gadgets that seemed off. Keanu didn't push, but he noted the description matched one of Vince's partners. He thanked Mr. Kim, bought a small keychain, and added the information to his anonymous tip. He also checked local security cameras near the warehouse, not hacking them, but noting which businesses had cameras that might have caught the gang's activity. He included this in his police tip, suggesting they check footage from specific stores. Keanu's patience and attention to detail paid off. He spent late nights organizing his findings, making sure every piece of evidence was clear and connected. He created a timeline of the gang's activities, linking Vince's bus drop-offs to the warehouse and the park stop. He even found an old article about a similar smuggling ring busted in a nearby city, hinting that Vince's gang might be a remnant of that group. He included this in his final anonymous email to the police, giving them a broader picture of the operation. Days passed, and Keanu kept his routine, riding the bus, watching the streets, checking X for updates. One evening, he saw a post from the Sunnyside City Police Department about a major operation in the factory district. Keanu knew it was time. Early the next morning, as the sun painted the sky pink, he positioned himself across from the warehouse, hidden behind a stack of old barrels. Sirens wailed, and police cars swarmed the area. Officers stormed the warehouse, shouting commands. Keanu watched as Vince and his two tattooed partners were led out in handcuffs, their faces grim. The police found crates stuffed with stolen electronics, counterfeit money, and other illegal goods. Keanu's clues: the receipt, map, phone number, park stop photos, shell company details, and community tips, tied it all together. The gang's operation was shut down, and the news spread across Sunnyside City like wildfire. When Tom, Lisa, and Emma returned from the mountains, their apartment was just as they'd left it. Tom went to the depot, his stomach in knots, expecting trouble. Instead, he found bus number 47 parked in its spot, clean and ready. Under the driver's seat was a folded note. "You're free now, Tom. Keep driving, keep smiling." It wasn't signed, but Tom knew it was Keanu. He sat in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel, and let out a shaky breath. The fear that had weighed him down for months was gone. He didn't know how Keanu had pulled it off, but the criminals were out of his life, and his family was safe. The next morning, Tom drove bus number 47 with a grin that lit up the street. The kids noticed right away. "Tom, you're happy again," Timmy shouted, waving his latest comic book, this one about a hero who saved the day without fighting. Mrs. Carter leaned out of her bakery, calling, "Good to see you back, Tom." Mr. Jenkins looked up from his newspaper and gave a rare nod, muttering, "About time." The bus buzzed with chatter and laughter, feeling alive in a way it hadn't in months. Tom never saw Keanu again. Rumors swirled around Sunnyside City. Some said Keanu had left for another town, off to help someone else in need. Others claimed they'd seen a man with a ponytail on a different bus, watching the streets with those sharp, quiet eyes. Tom didn't care about the gossip. He just kept driving, telling the kids stories about a mysterious hero who fixed problems without making a fuss. One afternoon, Emma hopped onto the bus after school, her backpack bouncing. "Daddy, I drew a picture for class," she said, holding up a crayon drawing. It showed a man with dark hair and a kind smile, standing next to a big blue bus with 47 on it. A little girl with pigtails stood beside him, holding a flower. Tom laughed, his heart full. "That's the best hero I've ever seen, Emma," he said, hugging her tight. Sunnyside City kept moving, its streets filled with the hum of buses, the chatter of people, and the smell of fresh coffee from street vendors. Tom drove through it all, his smile brighter than ever. He'd never forget the stranger who changed his life, the man who saw his fear and quietly made it go away. Somewhere out there, Keanu was still watching, still helping, still making the world a better place. One clever, kind step at a time.